What's up, guys? We are back with another Cosmic Legions review, taking a look at the one Tusk figure I didn't take a look at when I did the test shot reviews, when I got some of those done. So we're taking a look at the Tusk Sentry today. He's very similar to the Tusk Science Officer, but he's very much his own thing, too. Now, we've got him here in our standard Cosmic box. So you've got him there in the window, you've got the Tusk emblem up top, that hologram image down there on the bottom. You got him there in the window with some of his accessories. One spine gives you the write-up for Hvalkatar, what's going on with this story. The other spine gives us a product shot as well as his bio and what these guys are. And then the back of the box, just like the rest of these, will give us our cross-sell for everybody else that is in this first wave. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Tusk Sentry. So this is one of 3 Legion builders, legitimate Legion builders, in Cosmic Wave 1. And I say that in the sense that the pre-order price on these guys was super, super cheap, especially for, Legions now, where we get an actual Legion builder. It was like 25 bucks. Retail price is almost double that. So if you got in on the pre-order price, you got some pretty solid figures for cheap. Now, I've already, in many ways, kind of reviewed this guy too, because he is almost the exact same figure as the Science Officer. The big differences come down to color, deco, accessories is really where we're going to differentiate the two. This guy is really weird though. Like, he is almost like a primer gray color. Like, I have a feeling, I mean, I know for sure at this point, I have a feeling that the customizing community is going to kind of run wild with this figure. I think I prefer the Science Officer just from a color palette perspective, but this guy is like primed and ready to go if you want to paint him up. It's pretty gnarly what is going to be possible just based on how they produced this figure. So let's see what he can do. See how he moves around. Again, if you saw the Science Officer review, you know exactly what to expect here, but let's go through it anyway. So we got a head that can look up a little bit. He can look down. The head on this figure, I will say, is super, super tight on that ball peg. Like, it's very, very tight. So you're probably going to need heat to pop it off. You got some tilt side to side. You got your rotation. Of course, the neck does also move. It's so tight that the neck moves right now. Like, I can't even really move the head. It's so tight. You've got your arms that go out at the shoulder. They, of course, rotate. We've got a single jointed, about 90-degree rotating elbow. You've got gauntlet swivel. We've got wrist swivel, and then these are vertical hinges on these arms right here. One of the big areas of, I wouldn't say concern, but like the sort of oddity on the Science Officer is that he was pretty limited at the torso. So you can swivel. It's a 1.0 figure, so you've got the single piece. He can't really go backwards too much, but he can go forwards a decent bit. And this is where the Science Officer kind of stumbled a little bit because of these emblems that they have on the chest. The Science Officer's is really big and sticks out over the chest. The Sentry's does not. It's recessed. So it doesn't get in the way. The Science Officer's hit that belt, so he can kind of crunch forward a little bit there. You've got your legs that go all the way out. You can get him to do the splits, kick forward all the way. You do have to kind of cock the legs out to the side because he's got a really, really hard crotch piece here. So if you don't do that, he really can't go up too much, and then you're going to sort of rub that plastic. So watch what you're doing there. You got your thigh twist. We got single jointed about 90 degrees at the knees, and then you got swivel. And then, of course, you've got your standard Legion's ankle articulation. So there is rotation at the top of the ankle, really, really good rocker down here. And then you've got your hinge also. So normal stuff, especially if you saw the Science Officer, you know exactly what to expect here. He does have slight better range because of the emblem on his chest not being a quote-unquote issue. But otherwise, they're basically the same figure, and this guy is very much a 1.0 style Legions figure, whether you're used to Mythic or otherwise. Now, visually, this guy is kind of weird to talk about because there is and there isn't a lot to discuss. I've mostly gone over this figure in the Science Officer video because they share a tremendous amount of parts. They are different in many ways, but they share a lot of parts. So there is a lot of detail just crammed into this thing. I mean, like different types of finishes and textures, like space Kevlar types of coating. There's the little, like the inner rubber tubing aspects of them that sort of sit in between the joints that will act as like sort of like the seals on this spacesuit, things like that. He does have a different belt than the Science Officer, and he's got a different chest emblem, like I mentioned, because, this one has a little bit of added range as a result. The belt and the fan, if that's what that's supposed to be, do have a little bit of paint. They've got some of the sort of like graphite silver, so you can see them sort of reflecting there. He does come with a space backpack, so that helps to beef him up a little bit. We've seen this a number of times in the line already as well, but there is just so much detail on this guy, and this might be the figure to really, help pour over all of that, because he does remind me in many ways of a test shot where there isn't a lot of color to really pay attention to. It's all about looking at the sculpt. All of these lines, all of these little bits and bobs and doodads all over the sculpt that help to bring him to life that you might miss if you weren't just sort of staring at this sculpt, because there's nothing to really distract you on this figure. It's all about the details with this guy. And I think ultimately that's going to lend itself to being the figure that people choose to customize. I am not a customizer. Well, not really. I painted a few things here and there, but it's not what I do. It's not my thing, but I find myself very much interested in wanting to do that with the Sentry just because it does seem ready to go. It really seems like this figure was meant to be the one that you paint up. If you're not a customizer, if you're not a painter, this is the one you want to try, especially if you got him at that pre-order price because it was so cheap. Relatively speaking, he's a really cheap figure. Retailer price, I'm not so sure if it makes quite as much sense there, but there is a lot of potential hidden in this sculpt for sure. And we've seen these parts on other figures, and we can see exactly how easy it is to bring this guy to life. I'm going to bring the science officer in just for comparison's sake so you can see what I'm talking about in terms of what is similar and what's different. And overwhelmingly, these are the same figure. The belt buckle is different. The belt is different because the science officer has like the stirrups things, and the belt is different too. It's different pouches. He's got the different emblem, things like that. And then the science officer does have a little bit more in terms of paint because he has this sort of like metallic-y overspray. It's kind of hard to pick up, but in the right light, he just sort of sparkles, which is part of the reason why I prefer that figure. And then, of course, they have different heads, both helmeted and unhelmeted heads as well. And not to mention the fact the science officer has the transparent dome there. But there is a lot of similar stuff there. I feel like, both are going to be prime targets for customizing, but this guy just seems literally like he is primed and ready to go. But I think the sculpt is tremendous. There's so much detail here, a lot of different combinations of parts in terms of wanting to mix and match and pop things off. You can take, again, with just like all the other figures, you can take the space backpack off if you want to have a slightly smaller figure. And I think these look okay without them. I'm going to probably use them continually, but they do look okay without them. And there is a lot of potential in here as far as little detail that you can highlight if you want to go down the road of painting. And then, of course, this guy does have a pretty cool head sculpt. I think, again, I prefer the science officer just because of that transparent dome. But you do have, the opaque yellow up here. And then this one inside, there's nothing painted on this. It's the gray, but there's nothing actually painted or accented or highlighted. So there is a lot of surface area, a lot of real estate in there to bring out some of those details. Even if you just want to hit it with a colored wash of some kind, it might make it pop and maybe look a little bit cooler. But as it stands, it's still a pretty solid looking figure. It just doesn't have a lot of color, a lot of punch to it is really maybe a way to describe it. He's going to be kind of a background figure, a background character, a guard on your shelves in many ways, unless you want to get crazy with that paint. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, let's of course start with other Legions. So we've got a 1.0 Mythic here on the left, we've got Atlas, and we've got a 1.0 Deluxe figure from Cosmic on the right. So we've got one of the Sphexians, and you can see they all kind of mesh pretty well. The Sphexians are a little bit larger, but this guy is still very much a 1.0 figure, so he's going to fit in just fine across the board, as to be expected with all your Legions figures. And let's move some of these aside. Let's take the Sphexian aside. Let's do a figure arts. Here is the superhero Piccolo. Let's move Atlas aside. Here is a Super 7 Turtle. Here is Leo. Let's do an AWOC figure. So here is Tiberius, Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. Let's take Leo aside. And here is the Mezco Conan. And then let's take Tiberius aside. Let's do one more. Let's do a Marvel Legends for some Hasbro representation. There is a Banshee from the recent X-Men 3-pack. So this guy's a 1.0 Mythic figure, Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions figure. So it's all very much compatible and interchangeable. If you're familiar with 1.0 Mythic stuff, you're basically familiar with 1.0 Cosmic stuff, and he's going to fit in pretty fine in just about everything because being a spacey guy, an alien kind of guy, he doesn't necessarily have to jive with everything. He can be a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller depending on what you're trying to put him with. Now, as far as accessories goes, the Sentry does have pretty much the same kind of pack out that the Science Officer comes with, but the one big difference, and something that was sort of changed, or maybe that was an accident when it came to the test shots, is that the Science Officer did not include the bubble dome for the helmet. Only the Sentry does out of the 3 Tusk figures, so you do have that to start with. So you get the bubble, which is its own piece, and it connects to the housing that sits around. This thing does take a little work to actually get it on, and once you sort of figure out how it goes and where the clasps are, there's sort of little teeth on this thing, you'll be able to put it on a lot easier, but there is kind of a slight learning curve to it. So you can have it shut with the bubble, you can have it, you know, open, and then of course we do have an alternate head sculpt here, so we do have a different kind of alien for this one. This adds a little bit of color, obviously, because he's got like this black craggy head, and then you've got the sort of almost like lava looking paint job for those 6 eyes in there. He does come with some extra hands also. He's got the trigger finger hands on him in the box. You get a set of gripping hands. This guy, being one of the Tusk figures, he is part of the Tusk hands pack, so if you get that, you're going to get a lot of options for hands beyond what he comes with here. You kind of get the base number when it comes to this one, and then you get 3 different guns, well, 4 different guns, 3 different types. To start with, you get the sniper rifle. This is the same gun that comes with Ziri. Doesn't have any paint on it though. And then you get just the regular assault rifle here as well. So the Sentry should get, you know, slightly more beefy guns. And then he does include a set of the little wrist blasters, which also, you know, they can go on any of those ports. They can go onto the ones on the gun too, if you want to do something like that. Have like a, you know, an extra little side gun on that one. And then of course he does come with all of the different kinds of pegs. If you want to peg in some of like the sidearms that you can get in the weapons pack or from another figure, those can go back there on the belt. So he comes with a pretty solid amount of accessories here. Mostly it's ways to change them up, and then you get all these guns. He doesn't come with any other projection things, not with this figure, but he does include a lot of different options for making this guy into something a little bit more unique. So yeah, overall, this is a really solid figure. Again, he's not my favorite. I have a lot of others in this wave that I prefer over the Sentry, but it's still a really good figure. He moves well, he moves better than the Science Officer, but I prefer the Science Officer's visuals. A lot of great parts here, good mix of parts, and then of course, it's just a neat looking figure with a cool set of heads and a cool set of accessories. I really, really like that alt head, the unhelmeted alien head. I'm very happy with that. I can't wait to see more of that head pop up in the line. And then for the 50th time, this is going to be the figure to try and paint up. If you're new to customizing, this is going to be the one to try. I know Legions has a really seasoned group of customizers in the community, but there's infinitely more people out there who don't do that. And this might be the one to try your hand at because, I mean, it's just itching to be painted up. It looks like it needs a little bit of paint, and I feel like that's all it's going to take to bring it to life and make it even cooler than it already is. So that's going to do it for this look at the 4 Horsemen Cosmic Legions Book 1 Tusk Sentry. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.